there was a story in the Times. There is a story in the Times that I just couldn't get my head around. I mean, really, I'm no weakling. I've been in war zones. I've thought I'd kind of done it all. But this is about a traumatized British spy who was sent to a jihadist camp. He was so traumatized. When you hear the sorts of things he went through, he ended up killing his own child. Let me tell you some of the things he was, as I see it, he was a member of a mosque, and he overheard some things. He did the right thing. He reported it to the police. I'm really condensing a long story. He was recruited by, I think, MI5 and MI6. Eventually, he gets sent overseas into Afghanistan and camps and what have you. At one stage, an imam in a village pointed out a family and said, they are American spies. That family were meant to bend down. They had their throats cut. There was a child about the same age as his child who had their head decapitated in front of him. He was told to get that head, hold that head. I mean, you could not believe what this man went through. At one stage, two psychologists said, at separate incidents, said, this man is the most traumatized person we've ever come across. And yet his handlers kept saying, good job, go back in there. Even when he was tortured, when he had his nails ripped out, hope you're not too sore, go back in there. Long story short, he was domestically violent to his partner. Eventually, when he was alone with his own child, he killed his own child. He kept undercover, though. I mean, first of all, he wouldn't tell the story and everything. When my next guest came across him as his legal advice, he finally told the story. And there was info. He wasn't making it up, because before, psychiatrically, people have thought he was making it up. It turns out it was true. There were records of the psychiatric institution he'd gone into Pakistan, conversations that he'd had with MI5 and MI6. He'd been paid cash, so he had this house and this big car, and nobody could work out where it came from. It all fit together. But the jury couldn't hear the whole story because of all the secrecy. So he was sent to jail for murder. Jail, not a secure unit. The person who I mean, you have to read this story to believe it. You cannot believe it. Liam Kotrie is the person representing him. And I'm delighted to say, if you watch our show, you'll know his brother, Joseph, we have on the show a lot. I noticed this name. I said, oh, boy, we've got to talk to him. Liam Kotrie, who represented him in that trial, joins me now. Liam, God, this story, I mean, I've squished it down, but it is unbelievable.
Trisha, yes. What a story. When I first met him and he told me what he'd been through and everything that he'd seen and done and been asked to do throughout the time working for the security services, I have to say I didn't know whether or not to believe him. He was clearly mentally ill. Mm-hmm. He'd been through a lot. I didn't know what was true, what wasn't, if anything was. And he wouldn't be the first mentally ill person to call me and say that he's worked for MI5. But in this case, it turned out to be true. It took a long time for us to actually verify that with his previous employers. And really, that verification was the only help that they gave us throughout the preparation of his case. It was preparing his case for pretty much the entirety.
Oh, it just frozen there, but we'll just check on that link. But one of the things that I found really disconcerting was that during the trial, he said, or there was somebody, the gallery was cleared, but there was somebody always in his eye line, he said, looking at him, keeping an eye on him. And again, a lot of those things you think, oh, he's paranoid and what have you. But as you say, there was so much truth in what he was saying.
Yes, I mean, it was supposed to be a closed court, yet the security services were allowed to stay, and they sat in the benches with the lawyers, and I wondered why they were allowed to sit there. They didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge my presence, didn't assist me at all during the trial, but they were always watching. Now, I'm not saying that really made a difference to the whole trial. He gave a lot of information to the jury, the details of which I can't go into, and they brought back a verdict. And While I disagreed with that verdict at the time, there are, I believe, reasons why they did come back with it. But did they have all the information they could have had? Who knows? Because we've still not had that information from the security services. They're still yet to be fully held to account in this case.
And the other thing is that suddenly all the records of that court case have gone missing.
Yes, well, yeah, we can only speculate exactly what's happened there. I still have my records, I'm happy to say. And when it comes to these kinds of cases, someone convicted of murder serving a life sentence, we as lawyers have to keep records in perpetuity, because who knows what will happen when someone's serving a sentence for the rest of their life. Anything could turn up. We always hope that it will. We have to review these things every so often, certainly if the client or anyone else furnishes us with further information that would be able to assist them. In this case, that may happen, but time will only tell.
Yeah. The thing, I mean, there's so much shocking in this case, but the thing is, after he'd seen the most gruesome, awful things, been through the most gruesome, awesome things, been sent into areas where there were drones and the torture and everything, he kept being sent back to the very, psychologists were saying this person is the most damaged person I've ever seen twice. And yet it was like, steady, back you go, old chap. And he was sent back. I mean, that just beggars belief.
One wonders why they do these tests in the first place. Is it really to see whether or not they should be doing it, or just to see whether or not they can? In this case, they clearly could, and no doubt received a lot of useful information from him, but at what cost? Huge cost. The cost of his son's life, I believe. This could have been
because
avoided.
He was and I'm not saying a child lost their lives. Let's not forget that. But when you look at what he went through and how damaged he was and what he saw, I would defy any human being to go through what he did for this country, because he was born in Britain. He did all of this for his country, right? At the very least, why wouldn't he be in a secure psychiatric institution?
Well, he was for a certain amount of time when he was first arrested, but the psychiatrist who cared for him there believed that he was malingering and wasn't telling the truth about anything that he said. I can't go into any more detail than that at this time on that front, other than to say that I may have evidence in the future, and thanks to the great journalism done by the Sunday Times journalist Gabriel Pogrund, to assist my client in perhaps appealing this case in the future. There's lots of verification yet to be done, and should that information have been available in the first place, it may well have given a different verdict. But he was in a secure mental health unit for a short amount of time, but generally in the general prison population has been ever since. And in some ways that's made his mental health deteriorate more. He has sought help within there, but the mental health services, like any other health services within the prison system, is abysmal. And it's been very difficult for him to recover, if he ever will.
Gosh, it's reading this as well. You see spies and James Bond and they're lauded and what have you, and then you read the reality of how your country repays you, basically. I mean, let's say that this is how his country has repaid him.
Well, it's not the adventure that TV tells you it is in the first place, as you quite rightly say, and afterwards. If this case is the same as every other, if it is, I don't know, but if it is, it seems you're just forgotten about afterwards. And damn be you and damn be your families.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us. As you said, the amazing journalism that was done in the Sunday Times, please do read up on it, because, we crack on about the safety and the security of our country. And this was post 9/11, which, of course, is very important. But you need to read what happened to one person who actually went back and back and back in order to keep you and me safe, and what the outcome was. Horrific, absolutely horrific.